orphaned little girl was begging for leftover cake, until a single dad at the bakery saw her crying and the winter wind howled down the quiet street, carrying with it the faint smell of fresh bread and sugar frosting. Inside Baker's Haven, warm light spilled across the sidewalk, and that's where she stood. A tiny girl no older than 8, her thin coat 2 sizes too big, clutching an empty paper cup. Her eyes were fixed on the glass display. A half-eaten chocolate cake sat inside, the last piece from someone's birthday order. When a customer left the shop with a new pastry box, the door swung open, and the little girl whispered through chattering teeth, "Do you think they'll throw it away?" That was the moment Ethan Cole saw her. A man in his mid-30s, tall and broad-shouldered, still wearing his construction vest, holding his daughter's pink backpack in one hand. He had just stopped by the bakery to grab something sweet for his little girl, Lily, before picking her up from school. But what he saw through the window froze him, a child who wasn't supposed to be invisible, standing there like the world had forgotten her. He didn't know her name yet, didn't know the story behind those trembling fingers. But that night, Ethan's life, and hers, were about to collide in a way that would change them both forever. Ethan entered the bakery, trying to ignore the chill that had followed him in. The scent of cinnamon rolls filled the air. He pointed at a tray of cupcakes and asked the cashier to box up 2 of them. As he paid, his gaze drifted back to the window. The girl was still there, pressing her little palms to the glass. When he stepped outside, she turned away quickly, pretending to look at something on the ground. Ethan crouched down beside her, voice gentle. "Hey there, kiddo. You okay?" She didn't answer. Her lips were dry, her eyes red from crying. He noticed a small cardboard sign at her feet, written in shaky letters. "Just hungry. Please." He swallowed hard. "You hungry?" She nodded, hesitating, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to say yes. Ethan opened the bakery box and handed her 1 cupcake. "Here. It's chocolate. My daughter's favorite." The girl blinked, almost afraid to touch it. "I can't pay you," she whispered. Ethan smiled faintly. "Good thing it's not for sale then." She took it carefully like it might vanish. Her first bite was tiny, cautious. But when the sweetness hit her tongue, her eyes lit up in disbelief. For a moment, the street didn't exist, just her and the cupcake. She ate in silence, and Ethan couldn't look away. After a minute, he asked softly, "What's your name?" "Grace," she said. "Pretty name. Where are your parents, Grace?" Her chewing slowed. She looked down, crumbs falling into her small hands. "They went to heaven last Christmas." Ethan froze. His chest tightened. He had lost his wife 3 years ago in a car accident. Lily was only 4 then. He knew that kind of grief. The hollow ache that never really goes away. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "That's really tough." Grace nodded, her little shoulders shaking. "It's okay. I'm used to it." But her voice cracked halfway through the sentence. He knelt beside her, the snow crunching under his knee. "You shouldn't be out here alone, Grace. Where do you stay?" She hesitated again, glancing at the alley nearby. "There's a place behind the laundromat. It's dry when it doesn't rain." Ethan's jaw tightened. "That's no place for a kid." Grace shrugged, wiping her mouth with the back of her sleeve. "It's better than the shelter. The other kids take my things." For a long moment, neither spoke. Cars passed by, headlights painting streaks of light on the wet pavement. Ethan felt a pull deep inside, something more than pity, something he couldn't explain. He took off his work jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. "Keep that on, okay? It's freezing tonight." Her eyes widened. "But it's yours." He smiled faintly. "It's just a jacket. You're more important." As she looked up at him, this stranger who had shown her kindness when no one else had, a single tear slid down her cheek. Ethan stood, glancing at his watch. He was already late picking up Lily. But as he turned to leave, Grace's small voice stopped him. "Will you be back tomorrow?" He hesitated, then looked back at her, the girl wrapped in his jacket, standing under the bakery's warm light like a fragile shadow of hope. "Yeah," he said softly. "I'll be back." He didn't know it yet, but that promise would change everything, for both of them. The next morning, the bakery smelled of cinnamon and warm bread again, and Ethan found himself standing by the counter before work, 2 paper bags in hand, one with his usual sandwich and another smaller one filled with pastries and a thermos of hot cocoa. He glanced toward the window where he had first seen her. Empty. He tried not to worry. Maybe she was still asleep. Maybe she'd found somewhere safe. But his chest tightened with a feeling he hadn't expected, disappointment mixed with concern. He walked out onto the sidewalk and scanned the street, his breath misting in the cold air. Then from across the road, he spotted a familiar small figure curled up behind the laundromat's dumpster, hugging his jacket tight around her shoulders. He approached quietly, careful not to startle her. "Morning, Grace," he said softly. Her eyes fluttered open. She looked up, surprised, like she couldn't believe someone had actually come back. "You really came," she whispered. "Of course I did," Ethan said, setting the bag beside her. "Breakfast time." She unwrapped the napkin, revealing a muffin and a steaming cup. Her lips trembled as she held the thermos, the warmth seeping into her fingers. "No one's ever brought me food before," she said, her voice breaking. Ethan crouched down. "You should never have to say that, kiddo." She smiled faintly, that shy, grateful smile that pierced his heart. Watching her eat, Ethan felt something awaken inside him. A memory. A promise he'd once made to his late wife. "We'll raise Lily to always help people who have no one." And now, here was this little girl, someone else's Lily, lost in the cold. Later that afternoon, Ethan picked up his daughter from school. Lily, now 7, had her mother's bright blue eyes and the same curious spirit. She climbed into the truck, chattering about art class, until she noticed the extra cupcake sitting on the dashboard. "Daddy, who's this for?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. "For someone special." "More special than me?" she teased. He chuckled, ruffling her hair. "No one's more special than you, Peanut. But maybe you could help me share." That night, he told her about Grace. Not everything, just enough for Lily to understand. Lily's face softened as she listened. "Can we bring her to our house, Daddy? She can sleep in my room." Ethan smiled sadly. "I wish it were that simple, sweetheart. But we'll figure something out." The next day, they returned to the bakery together. Grace was waiting this time, sitting on the curb, hugging her knees. When she saw Ethan and Lily walking toward her, she stood quickly, brushing crumbs off her coat. "Grace, this is my daughter, Lily," Ethan said. "She's been wanting to meet you." Lily grinned. "Hi. Daddy says you like chocolate." Grace's eyes brightened a little. "It's my favorite." Lily handed her a paper cup filled with warm cocoa. "Then you'll love this. It's extra chocolatey." Grace took it with both hands. "Thank you." She looked at Ethan. "Are you like her dad?" He nodded. "Yeah, just me and her." Grace lowered her gaze. "I used to have someone like that. My dad. He worked at a gas station. He used to save half his sandwich for me." Ethan felt his throat tighten. "He sounds like a good man." "He was," she said softly. "He just got sick." Then Mommy, she didn't make it through the cold last winter. A heavy silence fell between them. Lily reached out and took Grace's hand. "You can sit with us now," she said. "Daddy always buys 2 muffins." Over the next few days, a quiet routine began. Every morning before school, Ethan and Lily stopped by the bakery, always with an extra pastry and cocoa. Grace waited for them, her face lighting up each time she saw their truck. Sometimes Lily brought her old storybooks or hair ties. Other times, Grace shyly offered to carry Ethan's coffee cup to his truck, like she wanted to help in return. But one morning, when Ethan arrived, Grace wasn't there. Her cardboard sign and cup were gone too. Panic rushed through him. He checked behind the laundromat, empty. The bakery owner hadn't seen her either. Hours passed before Ethan saw a familiar flash of gray, his own jacket, across the street. Grace was sitting on the curb outside the police station, hugging her knees, tears streaming down her face. He ran toward her. "Grace! What happened?" A police officer nearby stepped forward. "Sir, do you know this child?" Ethan nodded, breathless. "Yeah, she's my friend." "What's going on?" "She was found alone near the bus station," the officer said. "No guardian, no ID. We were about to take her to child services." Grace clung to Ethan's arm, shaking. "Please don't let them take me. Please." Ethan looked down at her, her tiny hands gripping his sleeve, her eyes wide with fear. He didn't even think before answering. "She's coming with me." The officer frowned. "Sir, that's not allowed unless—" "I'll handle the paperwork." "Whatever it takes," Ethan said firmly. "Just please don't take her away." The officer hesitated, then sighed. "You'll need to sign a temporary guardian form." As Ethan filled out the form, Grace stood beside him, watching every line he wrote like it was magic, like no one had ever written her name before. When he finished, he looked at her and said, "You're safe now, Grace. You're coming home with us." For the first time since he met her, she smiled, a real smile, the kind that made the world stop. The drive home was quiet except for the hum of the truck and the sound of Grace's soft breathing in the back seat. She held Lily's pink backpack in her lap, tracing the fabric with her fingers like it was made of gold. Every few minutes, she'd glance up front, as if afraid this moment might disappear. When they arrived at Ethan's small house at the edge of town, Grace hesitated before stepping out. It wasn't much, a cozy two-bedroom place with a little porch and a squeaky gate, but to her, it looked like a palace. Lily ran ahead and pushed the door open. "Come on. Daddy makes the best grilled cheese sandwiches ever." Grace followed slowly, unsure if she was allowed to take off her shoes, or touch anything, or breathe too loudly. Ethan noticed her hesitation and smiled. "You can relax, kiddo. This is your home now, at least for a while." She blinked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "Home?" "Yeah," he said gently. "Home." That night, after dinner, Lily showed Grace her room. The walls were painted soft yellow, with stars on the ceiling that glowed in the dark. Lily handed her an extra pillow and a small stuffed bunny with a missing ear. "You can have this. I used to be scared of the dark too." Grace stared at it like it was a treasure. "You sure?" "Yeah. His name's Mr. Hops. He's brave." Ethan watched from the doorway, heart aching. Grace's smile, small and unsure, reminded him of the first night he brought Lily home after her mother's funeral, the same fragile mix of fear and hope. He stayed up late filling out more paperwork, calling child services, and explaining the situation. They agreed to a temporary foster arrangement while they reviewed his eligibility. When he finally turned off the light, he found Grace asleep on the floor next to Lily's bed, still holding Mr. Hops tight against her chest. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains. Grace woke up to the smell of bacon and the sound of laughter. Lily was already at the table, drawing something with crayons. Ethan flipped pancakes at the stove. "Morning, sleepyhead," he said. Grace rubbed her eyes. "Is it okay if I help?" "Sure thing. Grab those plates." She moved carefully, as though she might break something by accident. But soon the kitchen filled with warmth, laughter, clinking dishes, and the kind of noise that felt like family. When breakfast was over, Ethan drove them both to school. Grace sat in the passenger seat, watching the houses go by. "Do I have to go too?" she asked quietly. Ethan smiled. "Not yet. Let's get you enrolled next week. One step at a time, okay?" She nodded, though a flicker of sadness crossed her face. "I used to go to school once." "Before," she trailed off. "Before what?" "Before my dad's accident," she said softly. "After that, we kept moving. Mom said school wasn't for kids like us anymore." Ethan gripped the steering wheel tighter. No kid should ever believe that. The next few days were peaceful. Grace began to open up, just a little. She helped Ethan wash dishes, learned how to make Lily's favorite peanut butter sandwiches, and even laughed when they had a movie night on the couch. But not everyone was happy about it. At the construction site where Ethan worked, his friend Mike noticed the exhaustion under his eyes. "Heard you took in some kid off the streets," he said over lunch. Ethan nodded. "Her name's Grace." Mike frowned. "Man, that's a big risk. What if something happens? You don't know her." Ethan looked at him steadily. "I didn't know Lily the day she was born either. But I didn't need to. I just knew she needed me." Mike sighed. "You've got a big heart, brother. Just be careful." Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, I will." But deep down, he knew caring for Grace wasn't about safety. It was about doing what was right. One evening, while the girls were coloring in the living room, Ethan got a call from Child Services. He stepped into the kitchen to answer. "Mr. Cole, we've completed the background check. Everything looks good," the woman on the phone said. "But there's something you should know." Ethan frowned. "What's that?" "There's been a report filed. A distant relative, a man claiming to be Grace's uncle, came forward. He wants custody." Ethan froze. "An uncle?" "Yes. He said he's her mother's brother, and he's been looking for her since last year." Ethan's chest tightened. He looked toward the living room, where Grace was laughing softly with Lily, drawing hearts on paper. "Is he a good man?" "We're not sure yet," the woman said. "We'll schedule a meeting soon. For now, please don't mention it to her until we verify." Ethan hung up slowly. His hands trembled. He didn't know why, but the thought of losing Grace felt unbearable. That night, after the girls went to bed, he sat on the porch, staring at the stars. He thought of his wife, her voice calm and kind, echoing in his mind. Sometimes love finds us in unexpected ways. Don't run from it. He knew then, whatever it took, he would fight for Grace. But the next morning, as he came down the stairs, he found the front door wide open and Grace's shoes missing. A note lay on the table, written in shaky letters. "Thank you for everything. But I can't stay. I don't want to cause trouble." Ethan's heart dropped. The house was silent except for Lily's small, sleepy voice behind him. "Daddy, where's Grace?" Ethan looked at the note, then at the open door, and whispered, "She's gone." Ethan's heart pounded as he tore down the street, calling her name into the icy morning air. "Grace! Grace, where are you?" His voice cracked, echoing off the quiet houses. The sun hadn't even risen fully yet, and frost still clung to the edges of the sidewalk. He searched the bakery first, empty. Then the laundromat alley, nothing but the faint smell of detergent and cold wind. Panic clawed at his chest. He showed her picture to passing drivers, to shopkeepers just opening for the day. No one had seen her. By noon, he was sitting in his truck with his head in his hands, his phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, officer, she left a note." "No, I don't think she's with any relative. Please, just find her." When he hung up, he noticed a small drawing tucked between the seats, 2 stick figures holding hands, one labeled Grace, the other Mr. E. His throat tightened. Meanwhile, Grace was several miles away, sitting on the curb near the old bus station. She had spent the night under the broken shelter, using Ethan's jacket as a blanket. Her stomach growled, but her heart hurt worse. She replayed the words she overheard the day before, a faint voice from the phone when Ethan was in the kitchen. "An uncle wants custody." She thought she'd done something wrong, that maybe Ethan didn't want her anymore. The last thing she wanted was to make him choose between keeping her and losing his job or his daughter's peace. So she decided to disappear again. But as the cold wind bit at her cheeks, a deep ache settled in her chest. For the first time since her parents died, she missed someone. She missed Lily's laughter, Ethan's gentle voice, the smell of pancakes and warmth that felt like love. Her eyes filled with tears. "I shouldn't have left," she whispered. Back at home, Lily sat at the kitchen table, her crayons untouched. "Daddy, we have to find her," she said softly. "She doesn't have anyone else." Ethan knelt beside her. "I know, sweetheart. I'm trying." Lily's small hand touched his face. "You always said Mommy believed that love makes a family, not papers. Maybe Grace is supposed to be part of ours." Her words struck him deep, simple but true. Love wasn't about blood. It was about showing up when someone needed you most. That night, Ethan printed missing child flyers and drove through town with Lily asleep in the back seat. He stopped at gas stations, diners, even the shelter downtown, leaving her picture wherever he could. It wasn't until the second night that a clerk at the bus station recognized her. "Yeah, I saw a little girl wearing a man's jacket, sitting out back by the loading bay. She left an hour ago, though." Ethan's pulse raced. "Did she say where she was going?" The man shook his head. "No, but she asked when the next bus to Pinefield leaves." Pinefield. That was where her parents had lived before the accident. He didn't waste a second. Rain started falling as Ethan drove, headlights cutting through the dark road. Pinefield was 2 hours away, and the storm made every mile feel longer. He gripped the wheel tight, whispering under his breath, "Hold on, Grace. Please just hold on." When he finally pulled into the Pinefield station, it was nearly midnight. The lot was mostly empty, just a few old buses parked under flickering lights. And there, near the back bench, he saw her. Grace sat alone, soaked from head to toe, hugging her knees. His jacket was drenched, her lips blue from the cold. Ethan jumped out of the truck and ran toward her. "Grace!" She looked up, startled. Her eyes widened. You came." He dropped to his knees in front of her, rain pouring over them both. "Of course I came. Why would you run off like that?" She began to cry, shaking her head. "I heard you on the phone. About my uncle. I didn't want to be a problem. You already have Lily. You don't need me to." Ethan's voice broke. "Grace, listen to me. You're not a problem. You're a part of our family now. And if your uncle really wants you, we'll figure it out together. But you don't ever have to face anything alone again. Do you understand?" Her tears mixed with rain as she whispered, "I just didn't think anyone would want me." Ethan took her face in his hands, his voice steady but trembling. "Then let me be the first to tell you, I do. We do." She threw her arms around his neck, sobbing into his chest. He held her tightly, feeling her tiny heartbeat against his heart. Back home, Lily was waiting on the porch with a flashlight, refusing to go to bed until they returned. When she saw the truck lights, she ran down the steps shouting, "Grace!" Grace stumbled out, still dripping wet, and Lily hugged her like she'd never let go. "Don't ever run away again, okay?" Grace nodded, crying, "I won't. I promise." Ethan stood under the porch light, watching them. His heart ached with gratitude, for the miracle of finding her, for the lesson this little girl had unknowingly taught him, that sometimes love doesn't wait for permission. It just happens, quietly and fiercely. Later that night, after tucking both girls into bed, he sat in the living room staring at the empty paperwork on the table. He didn't know what the system would decide, or whether Grace's uncle was truly family, or just another threat to her safety. But one thing was certain, Ethan wasn't letting her go again. He picked up the pen and began to write the words that would change her life forever. Petition for legal guardianship of Grace Miller. Outside, the storm finally began to fade. 2 weeks later, sunlight spilled through the kitchen window, painting everything golden. Grace sat at the table, coloring beside Lily while Ethan flipped pancakes, her favorite. The house, once quiet and lonely, now buzzed with laughter, chatter, and the sound of 2 little girls arguing over syrup. "Lily, you always take the biggest pancake." Grace giggled. "That's because I'm the oldest," Lily declared proudly. "You're only older by a year." Ethan chuckled, shaking his head. All right, you both get the same. Deal." They both nodded, their laughter filling the room, the kind of laughter that heals. For a moment, everything felt perfect. But deep down, Ethan knew that today was important, maybe even life-changing. In a few hours, they would meet the man claiming to be Grace's uncle. Child Services had arranged it in a neutral office downtown. Ethan wasn't sure what would happen, but he had already made up his mind. He wouldn't let Grace be hurt again. When they arrived, Grace clung to his arm, trembling. "What if he's mean?" she whispered. Ethan knelt down beside her. "Then we'll tell the truth, and I'll be right next to you the whole time." Inside the small conference room sat a man in his late 40s, worn-out clothes, rough hands, tired eyes. He looked up as they entered, and his gaze softened when he saw Grace. "Gracie," he whispered. Grace froze. "Do I know you?" He smiled sadly. "I'm your Uncle Robert, your mom's brother. I didn't even know you were still alive until they called." His voice cracked with emotion. "I tried to find you, sweetheart. I really did. But when your mom passed, they told me you'd been taken into a foster program. By the time I got there, you were gone." Grace's eyes filled with tears. "You looked for me?" He nodded. "Everywhere." Ethan watched silently, his chest heavy. He could see the sincerity in Robert's eyes, a man who had also suffered, who had lost too much. After the meeting, Robert stepped outside with Ethan. "You've taken care of her, haven't you?" he said quietly. Ethan nodded. "She's part of our family now. My daughter adores her. And honestly, so do I." Robert sighed. "I can tell. I haven't got much, just a small mechanic shop out in Colorado. I wanted her with family, but maybe she already has that." Ethan studied him carefully. "You're a good man, Robert. And if you really love her, maybe what's best isn't taking her away. It's letting her stay where she finally feels safe." Robert smiled faintly. "You'd fight for her?" "With everything I have." The older man nodded. "Then I think she's right where she belongs." That evening, Grace sat on the porch swing, staring at the setting sun. Ethan came out and sat beside her, handing her a cup of warm cocoa. "So," he said gently, "what do you think of your uncle?" She smiled softly. "He's kind. He looks like my dad a little." Her voice trembled. "But when he said he wanted me to be happy, I told him I already was." Ethan's eyes filled with quiet tears. "You sure about that, kiddo?" Grace nodded, resting her head against his arm. "You and Lily, you feel like home." For a long moment, neither spoke. The wind rustled the trees, carrying with it the sound of laughter from inside, Lily singing off-key to her favorite song. Ethan looked at Grace, his voice low. "You've changed this house, you know that? You brought something back I didn't even realize I'd lost." "What's that?" she asked. "Hope." Grace smiled, eyes glistening. "You brought me that too." A month later, the adoption hearing was held. Grace sat between Ethan and Lily, her hands shaking as the judge read through the final documents. "Mr. Cole," the judge said, "you've demonstrated consistent care, stability, and emotional support for this child. In light of that, and with the consent of her biological relative, the court hereby grants you full legal guardianship of Grace Miller." The gavel struck. For a heartbeat, the room was silent, then Grace turned to Ethan, tears streaming down her face. "Does this mean I'm really yours?" Ethan nodded, unable to speak. He pulled her into his arms, whispering against her hair, "Forever, sweetheart. You're ours forever." Lily threw her arms around them both, shouting, "We're a family now." And for the first time in a very long time, Ethan felt whole again. That night, the three of them sat by the fireplace, a photo of Ethan's late wife on the mantel above. Grace stared at it thoughtfully. "Do you think she'd like me?" she asked. Ethan smiled through tears. "She'd love you. She always wanted our home to be filled with love and laughter." Grace looked around at the cozy living room, at Lily curled up beside her, at the warm glow of the fire. Then I think she got her wish. Outside, snow began to fall softly, the same snow that once covered the streets where Grace had stood hungry and forgotten. But this time she wasn't alone. She had a father, a sister, and a place to belong. As the fire crackled and laughter filled the house, Ethan looked at the two girls, his girls, and whispered to himself, "Sometimes the family we build is even more beautiful than the one we're born into." And with that, the little girl who once begged for leftover cake finally found something far sweeter: love, home, and the family she never had. Kindness can change a life, sometimes even your own. The smallest act of compassion can create a family, heal a wound, or bring light to someone's darkest night.